forget you're a preacher, Frank. I'm not worried about Regina, but George and Haywood, watch what you say as we go forward. We are also excited. Obviously, this is the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. To all of our friends of the House of David, we wish you shalom, and pray this has been a wonderful, reflective day of fasting for all. And we're also kicking off Hispanic Heritage Month. Another opportunity to celebrate the great diversity of this amazing nation and the contributions of so many of our wonderful citizens. As usual, we have great demand. The leadership of the National League of Cities and Ignite Cities, and pulling together thought leaders and public servants from all across the country, and obviously with Cities Today, we're sharing these messages all around the world. We have over 200. I think maybe double that today, George. You have to let me know. City leaders from across. Oh yeah, mayors, city council members, so many government leaders, professional staff. We got folks from Pittsburgh and Fort Wayne and Birmingham, San Jose, Chicago, Phoenix, and so many other cities from around the country. As usual, if you have any questions, you can certainly use Zoom's Q&A feature, or you can email us at askme@ignitecities.com, askme@ignitecities.com. And certainly we want you to feel free to post your thoughts or anything you might have on social media, and tag our mayors, tag NLC, tag Ignite Cities, and we'll be sure to reshare that information. So, we're going to jump right in and talk about recovery. We are seeing, always when we go to Washington, D.C., I always like to remind our federal officials that sometimes people think it's manna from heaven, money falling from D.C. The reality is that these are our tax dollars being repatriated to our communities, the wonderful metropolitan areas. Yes, sir.
Real quick, Mayor, real quick, if we could let Hayward say a few words on NLC, I'll say them, then we'll jump and you go right into the questions.
Hayward.
It's all you, Hayward.
Thank you, Hayward. Hayward, a guy that started his superstar career as my chief of staff. And I couldn't afford to keep him, so he went to the big league. Go ahead, Hayward Harvin, on behalf of
Mayor Benjamin. I've never stopped working for you, whether I'm getting paid for it or not. So I'm glad to be here and thankful for you and your leadership hosting so many sessions of this Mayor's Roundtable. This is our 12th convening. You've been one of our most reliable and engaged supporters, so I want to thank you. And then Mayors Romero and Scott, thank you both for coming on this session and sharing your experiences with our membership at the National League of Cities. As everyone knows now, that today we're talking about the American Rescue Plan, the $1.9 trillion package designed to help our nation recover from the effects of COVID. And $65.1 billion of that is going to cities, towns, and villages all across the country. Every city, town, and village, almost 19,000 municipalities are eligible for these funds. This money, the $65 billion for local governments, was the result of a year-long NLC advocacy campaign led by our CEO, Clarence Anthony, and our federal advocacy team. And also it was done with the support of our membership. NLC is ready to help the cities, towns, and villages recover and rebuild from the pandemic using the ARPA funds. To get your skills, best practices that you need to support your community, you can visit our website, nlc.org/recovery. There you'll find blogs, fact sheets, webinars, trackers, and summaries related to ARPA implementation. You can also reach out directly to our ARPA team by emailing advocacy@nlc.org. Thank you all again for being here. We wouldn't put these sessions on if we weren't having hundreds of elected officials from across the country show up, watch these live, and then also share them with their staffs after the fact when we make them available to you digitally. Thanks again, George, back to you.
You got it. I'll say a few words real quick. First, Mayor Benjamin, without you, this is impossible. End of the story, right? I can drop the mic right there and just be like, Mayor Benjamin, thank you for everything you're doing. But to have both Mayor Romero and Mayor Scott Jr. on, it's incredible. We're going to talk about the American Rescue Plan dollars and funding, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how we change the way people live. We're going to talk about how we humanize the way technology changes the way every family becomes equal. That's what we're working for, right? At the end of the day. So our work at Ignite is really to ensure that mayors have the tool sets, the advisory groups, the support systems in place to really make some of those decisions. And Mayor Benjamin's a great example of a mayor who's allowed us to do that work, who's allowed us the opportunity to work beside him. We talk about Mayor Garcetti and Mayor Suarez and other folks who've given us that same opportunity. I just want to say thank you to all of the mayors and thank you for the work you're doing every day. I'd also like to quickly say thank you to National League of Cities. Hayward, you said it perfectly. The data you dropped down on us is incredible. In fact, without your support, I'm not sure where we would be with Clarence and team, with you, with Shantae and the entire group, Timothy and Melissa. I just like to say thank you from the Ignite team for everything you're doing. And of course, Cities Today. When we're done with this conversation, Cities Today, which is a global publication, will then take that and share it with elected officials across the world. So I just like to say thank you to everyone that's here today. And of course, Mayor Benjamin, thank you. And I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thanks, George. And you've been an amazing partner helping us. We all know the pandemic really exposed so many broken bones in American society. And when you bring head and heart to the table to actually solve some problems for our families, you can get some things done. So Ignite Cities has been an incredible partner. And Hayward, please, I agree with George, my love to Clarence and Shantae and just the whole team. We would not be in this position to help so many folks with ARP funds, but for the leadership shown by NLC and some others. But now one of our colleagues recently told me, he said, now I feel like I'm the dog that caught the car. We have a significant amount of federal resources coming back into our communities right now. And obviously, I know the two of you're very engaged in your communities. You listen to your constituents and the men and women that you serve every single day. The recovery package is a potential to produce obviously significant change in all of our communities across the country, especially when it comes to, as George mentioned, mitigating these inequities. How has your city designed a public input program that engages your residents and yields the data to determine how you make these critical interventions that we're all looking at doing? And I'll let you go first, Mayor Romero.
Mayor Benjamin, it is a true honor to be here with you, as well as with Mayor Scott Jr. and NLC and Ignite Cities. The amazing work that you're all doing is incredible. Happy Yom Kippur and feliz mes de la herencia hispana, which is what we call our Hispanic Heritage Month. The diversity, as you said, Mayor Benjamin, of our country is what makes us so strong. And so I'm happy to be able to sit around this table with you all that are change makers throughout our country. I've had the privilege to sit on the Tucson City Council for 12 years before I became mayor, before the electorate of the city of Tucson elected me to be their mayor. And so I've walked into my position as mayor, thank goodness, having all that experience, because it has been 2020 was one of the most difficult years for any mayor throughout the country. And so we had to create these paths that we've never traveled, at least for 100 years, because of previous pandemics, worldwide pandemics, as we are going through now. And so for me, I've always believed in co-governance with our communities, with our nonprofits, and with groups throughout not just the city of Tucson, our region, and Arizona. And we're at the precipice, right? As a society, we were at the precipice. We knew that technology was going to change the way we do businesses as cities. But with the pandemic, we were pushed from the precipice and really had to act quickly to get our children and our public service workers to be able to deliver the services of our cities virtually. We all had to go home, including myself and my staff, and continue providing the services that we did. So we took advantage as the city to have virtual town halls and put out surveys. We've taken advantage of social media to be able to communicate. In my case, we were doing, when the pandemic first started, we were doing informational videos, both in English and Spanish, a day-to-day account of the decisions we were making as a city, and the decisions that I was making. Because remember, many of us had to work through emergency orders. And so both in English and in Spanish, every day we would create a video. And so we took advantage of technology to be able to communicate with the residents of the city of Tucson. Related to public input as well, the city underwent extensive stakeholders and public input processes virtually. We've called it the People, Communities, and Home Investment Plan, in which we started the process in 2020 to receive input from our community as to what they felt was important for them, for us to invest our CARES money and now our ARP money in our community. So we have thousands of surveys and town halls and different methods of focusing input from our community, including our Indigenous community and our Spanish monolingual speaking community, with focus groups as to how we invest the dollars from both CARES and American Rescue Plan. So for me, being able to engage our community, our diverse, different groups of communities here in the city of Tucson, was absolutely important for us to be able to invest our CARES and now our American Rescue. And what we heard throughout, in whatever language we received the input on, was that we had to make sure that we invested in infrastructure in terms of internet accessibility and Wi-Fi for our children and our families working from home, that we have to invest in affordable housing opportunities, that we have to invest in small, locally owned businesses, and that we need to invest in nonprofits, which is the network that provides the services to many vulnerable communities in Tucson. So absolutely engaging our communities is one of the most important ways to continue making decisions in these incredibly difficult times.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor. Mayor Scott, how do you engage your folks, gotten public input as you try to make these interventions to help people turn the corner at the end of this pandemic, or eventually at the end of the pandemic?
Well, thank you so much. And it's definitely a pleasure to be here with each of you. I think, as Mayor Romero has already shared, with us mayors that have experienced the last 2.5 years, it's unbelievable. Literally, we've all experienced a global pandemic that we're still in. Aspects of social and civil unrest as it relates to the death of George Floyd, due to climate change, many of us have had to deal with historic snowstorms and floods. At the end of the day, we all have to continue our first job to take care of our residents, public safety, health, and welfare. I think we've always knew we had to take care of public safety and the welfare. We did not expect to have to lead on healthcare as a mayor. But what we've seen across the nation, our mayors literally step up, and as Mayor Romero shared, we had to lead through executive orders. We had to lead when other leaders that we think would lead did not or chose not, but we all go to the grocery store and we have to experience our residents. We go to the barbershop, the beauty salon, and they want an answer. And quite frankly, we as mayors are closest to the ground with our constituents. And so it truly was an experience of a lifetime. But it shows that we as mayors have to be civically engaged. We have to focus on engagement and communications at all modes available to us, whether it's social media, digital, radio, print, and literally hitting the streets. And so we were able, not only through COVID, but as well as through ARPA and many of the things, is really communicate well via video. We've done a host of videos and have transcribed those videos in other languages as well, really focusing on keeping everyone up to date on all modes of social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and YouTube as well, to keep everyone on the know, because we cannot assume that everyone was receiving information via TV, even though many do. And so we've done a good job of communicating. That's part of one of our things our administration is having 3 C's. 1 is customer service, 2 is communications, and 3 is cementing change through execution. And so when we look through those modes of mediums, I've done that. But mostly what we've been doing the past several months is we've had community walks, forgive me, we call them Scott strolls. But literally what we do is go to all of our neighborhoods. We have 199 neighborhoods in the city of Little Rock, and we've gone close to 60 or 70 of them since about February of this year. And so literally what we do, we're bringing City Hall to communities. And literally all of our department directors, whether it's our police chief, our fire chief, our public works director, our IT director, HR, finance, housing neighborhood programs, community programs, parks and recreation, are all joining me when we go to various neighborhoods to share updates and also to listen to concerns. And there's a question that I can't answer, I look to my left or I look to my right, and to really have that one-on-one engagement. And so we do that. I have been doing that now once a week on Mondays from 6 to 7. And this is in addition to our daily grind and our daily communication as well. And so we found that to be very useful as we plan and have planned for our ARPA. I'm happy to report that we've already passed our first tranche. Little Rock received $37 million, as Mayor Romero knows. We received our first tranche. And so we, through that feedback over the last several months, we knew exactly where to put the money. And so we focused a lot on broadband and for our parks, and particularly our unserved, underserved areas, to create more access, because in more urban communities, it's less about affordability, more about accessibility.
Amen.
So we wanted to make sure that all communities have access to broadband, because we know broadband is great for education, but it's also great for economic development and entrepreneurship. And we want to bring that kind of access to every area, but specifically to our underrepresented, underserved, and unserved areas of our city. Secondly, we focused a lot clearly on infrastructure, water, drainage, things of that nature. But we also created incentives close to $1 million, where we're now giving individuals $100 gift cards to take the vaccine. And boy, can I tell you, if you put out $100, there are folks who are coming to take it. So we've been very excited to see an uptick in vaccination rates because of utilization of ARPA and our vaccine incentives. And then finally, as we talked about infrastructure, but we also understood that many of our residents have been paying attention to what's going on across the world with ransomware. And they understood that we needed to utilize these resources to protect our city from ransom. And so that was another portion that we were able to do. And most people think, that our residents want our city to be protected from an IT standpoint because it protects their information, their business permits, their licenses, their things of that nature. And so we've been able to commit the first tranche and be very innovative with it, particularly by leaning in on equity and making sure that all of our decisions are used with the equity lens. And that's how we made decisions on where the dollars were spent.
Oh, fantastic! I love the fact that both of you are using so many different ways of engaging citizens. The days of having three guys come on the news at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. and tell everyone what's going on in the world as our main way of learning about what was happening along over. You really had to be very aggressive and intentional about outreach and just as you're talking, making sure you're listening and responding to the needs of the community. I love the creativity, and both of you already somewhat touched on this, but obviously a critical, and I'm a South Carolinian, so I have to do shameless plugs for South Carolina all the time. The fantastic president of the National League of Cities is Kathy Maness, my sister from Lexington, South Carolina, doing an amazing job helping us provide regional leadership all around Columbia and Lexington, and I want to make sure. I know that this organization is led by each and every one of the council people and town council members and village leaders and mayors. But Kathy, we're thankful for your leadership and want to do that. A critical component of the American Rescue Plan is a direct and flexible municipal grant program called the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. If you guys been doing anything else, any specific policy interventions that allow you to prioritize how you spend those funds? And Frank, I'll let you start first this time, and then Regina.
Well, how we prioritize spend our funds, we definitely have been paying a lot of attention to that. One of the things that we've been doing with those funds priorities is creating a financing mechanism that studies that on our behalf and presents those reports to my and to our city board and really helps us look at that and those particular financing decisions. And so very excited about that, and as they continue to bring that information back to us.
Awesome. Mayor Romero.
Yeah, what we have heard through the different engagement processes, and I absolutely want to agree with Mayor Scott Jr., that we have to see the pandemic. What it has taught us is that something that we had in front of us for generations, but the pandemic really highlighted, which were the incredible inequities that Black, Indigenous, and communities of color have had to gone through for generations, right? That we are, in order to be able to have equal services and protections, we have to have equity. And so what we have seen is that here in Tucson, and I'm pretty sure throughout the country, that the communities where our lowest income communities live, those are communities of color, low income communities that are served much less with healthcare, opportunities for high quality education, and other opportunities, employment opportunities. And so what we have heard loud and clear is that we need a holistic approach with an eye to equity. And so we are focusing in, like I said before, in affordable housing, in gun violence intervention or interruption programs, And that means that we're investing our American Rescue Plan dollars. Our first tranche was $67 million. Our first tranche, we're investing in affordable housing opportunities in the city of Tucson. We've are continuing to invest in Wi-Fi connectivity. We are investing in youth employment programs and mental health and substance use disorder programs and workforce development, in infrastructure for areas of our city that have been historically disinvested in our parks, and green space, because believe it or not, which I think you will, our low-income communities are also areas of our city that have the highest heat island effect. In other words, climate change and heat affect our low-income communities. They're the front lines of climate change. And so we're taking a holistic approach as to how we invest these dollars. And we're pushing the limits in terms of the services that we provide them, right? Because of American Rescue Plan dollars and CARES dollars, we are offering free transit services for our residents, both in our streetcar and our bus system, till December of this year. And we're also providing investment in, like I said before, small business grants, nonprofit grants, and we're trying to look at it in its entirety. And thank goodness, as Mayor Benjamin said, we are living in good times and in bad times because of the pandemic, but good times because the federal government is returning federal dollars and investing in communities like Tucson. And the best piece of it is that they are infusing funds to the frontline levels of government, which are cities, towns, and villages throughout the United States. We really know as mayors what the needs of our community are and where we need to invest those dollars. We also, have a local eviction moratorium here in the city of Tucson that we've expanded until December of this year as well. So everything we possibly can do and be smart about how we invest in our communities with an eye to equity, so that we can invest the most. Even though we're investing for all, we can invest the most where the greatest needs are.
What I love is that your answers are so comprehensive and just really deep dive. Is that you're taking all my questions, by the way, so I'm not sure if I appreciate that at all. But no, just thoughtful answers. Prior to the pandemic, other than conversations I would have with George, in DC, you never really heard the discussion about human infrastructure. About how you would humanize data to make real impacts in people's lives, and you all are both doing that in spades in your respective cities. So this is downright exciting. One very specific example of the benefits of ARPA is also the child tax credit. It's been expanded to provide additional financial support to families. We've been watching data over the last several decades, and particularly accelerated with AI and automation, advanced machine learning. So many families are struggling to make ends meet, and this child tax credit can just make the difference for so many of them. Obviously, we as local leaders have a role in helping families understand the changes to the tax credit and how they can go about accessing these funds. Have either of you done something specifically in that space, any strategies, any partnerships that you've employed to help educate and engage your residents on this program? And you can go first, Mayor Romero.
Yes, it's very important for our families to know exactly how to, many families, especially undocumented families that have been working here for 10, 20, 30 years, uh, don't know, and many of them are mixed status families, right? They have citizen children and they are undocumented workers themselves, or they have dreamers and citizen children and they are undocumented. They don't know how to tap into these funds that they have paid into. So we've partnered with local nonprofit organizations like Mi Familia Vota, Lucha, and the YWCA, to be able to promote through social media, through radio, however we possibly can, so that they can sign on for them to receive the child tax credit. Um, and it is a very good, that return for the children, right? Many
Mhm.
families, as we started school, that tax credit, they were used to buy their kids tennis shoes and clothes and uniforms and school material, and it went right back into our economy.
Yeah.
And so it's not only the right thing to do for families and children, but it is good for cities, towns, and villages throughout our country to be able to tap into, promote those funds, let families know that they have access to these funds, um, for the family to be able to live. Many of these families lost their jobs, are working less hours. Many of these families are frontline workers, exposing themselves and their children to COVID. So they have the right, it's the right thing for the families and the children, but it's also good for the economies of our cities, towns, and villages. So I do everything I possibly can. I use my own social media. I do virtual interviews. I partner with organizations that are trying to promote it, and do radio and everything that I can so that we can promote um, this credit, these funds that will help families lift themselves from poverty. I think I heard about 50% of children living in poverty will be lifted from poverty because of these child tax credits. And so it's important that we help families in our communities be able to tap into them and use them for their needs.
Absolutely. Mayor Scott?
Yes, we've been very interested and engaged on the tax credit and what it means to our youth, but also to our families, and what we can do as we all are looking towards greater equity. But also, this tax credit is also it's economic, and we must not forget how it helps from an economic standpoint and what I call equitable economics. And so, when you think through the lens of equitable economics, we're pushing this. One of the things that's helping us to continue to stay on the ground and make sure that the communities that are available to receive this child tax credit clearly are some of our most vulnerable youth and most vulnerable families within our cities. And so happy to report that our Chief Equity Officer, Dr. Dion Jackson, Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, has taken this on in tandem with our Chief Education Officer to work not only with understanding, identifying those families, those students, those kids with our local school district, but also partnering with organizations that are very keen on child development and the economics of child development from a workforce development standpoint and the human infrastructure. And so we've been working a lot with the Winthrop Rockefeller Foundation, as well as the Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families from that standpoint. And so again, we focus on a lot of civic engagement to educate our residents on what's available to them from ARPA. And there's more than just the 37 million that we received. It's countless other millions that have gone to our state, but also are going direct to other NGOs to connect them. And we love to play that vehicle of connections. And so as we strategically connect communities to resources, it overall helps with this, as you shared earlier, the human infrastructure. And if we have great human infrastructure, we have a great community infrastructure. A great community infrastructure helps when we create that great nexus between education and economic development. And that all that's through the sustainability of the health and the wellness of the residents of the community.
It's exciting to be able to connect all the dots, isn't it? For a change, I mean, get all the dot resources to do so. I'm loving just the leadership I'm hearing here. Already getting some questions coming in. I got Mayor Lynn Deutsch from Dunwoody, Georgia. She was curious if any of you spent some time planning on maybe revitalizing housing complexes with ARP funds, and everyone, particularly in your two cities in particular, are just thriving in terms of growth and the compression it means for housing that's workforce housing or affordable is a real challenge. Have you looked at some housing opportunities?
Yes, with part of our first tranche that we've committed, when we talk about affordable housing, we are trying to morph affordable housing to firmly address homelessness and connect the gateway out of homelessness through affordable housing. And so part of our ARPA funds, again, we received 37. So the first 18 million, we put it somewhere around 2 million to connect. One, we're purchasing dilapidated single family homes, as we know that HUD is getting away from the traditional towers and apartment complex multifamily to focus more on single family units to, as we all help close racial wealth gaps by understanding true real estate in the meaning of having your own home for first-time home buyers, and in processing our mindsets to manage wealth from a real estate standpoint. So I believe we have somewhere about 2 million connected, where we're going into communities that have dilapidated homes. And the reason why is right now, those dilapidated homes are havens for crime and also dangerous homeless encampments. And so essentially, we're trying to build the block back. And as we build the block back, we want to ensure that we go back to communities that were once vibrant, but through the industrial past, due to redlining, due to many different issues that weren't focused. The focus was not on equity, to go back and utilize equity to invest and to reinvest. And so we're going after these dilapidated homes, then to restructure them, to redevelop them, and then help our brothers and sisters to exit homelessness through this passion.
Fantastic. Mayor Romero?
Yes, thanks to American Rescue Plan, the city of Tucson has received more than $20.8 million for our housing community development department. And much of it is for emergency rental assistance, as well as emergency assistance. We don't want to see additional families and children become homeless because of them losing a job. So emergency rental assistance and emergency assistance for housing has been key here in the city of Tucson. Before that pandemic, in my first month in office as mayor of the city of Tucson, I pushed and we approved as mayor and council a housing first model, that we would use a housing first model in the city of Tucson to make sure that we housed our houseless folks here in the city of Tucson, and then wrap around services according to their needs. So house them first and ask questions later was an important model that I felt we needed to use. Many cities throughout the country use that model and have had incredible outcomes because of using housing first. So when the pandemic hit, we were forced to jump right into the housing first model because we wanted to make sure that we housed our houseless folks in hotels and then wrap around the services. We didn't want to make sure that we wanted to make sure that that COVID didn't propagate, right? That it didn't keep on spreading. And so we started housing our homeless folks. And as a consequence, we started seeing the effects of what using a housing first model was. And so with the American Rescue dollars, we practiced that. And with the additional tranche of money that the city of Tucson is receiving, we've put aside with the first tranche, $10 million to, yes, invest in first-time home buyers, in fixing, um, uh, making sure that we're putting money into fixing homes, especially for seniors, so that they can stay where they are. And then we're putting money into purchasing hotels so that we can continue using the housing first model where we house our houseless folk and then wrap around the services, partnering with nonprofit organizations that can provide mental health services, addiction prevention, and drug substance use disorders. And so it has been an incredible journey, but we have seen how these models are used firsthand, and we have permanently housed more than 600 individuals that found themselves being homeless. And so eviction prevention, investing in older housing stock, especially for low-income seniors, so that seniors can continue living an independent life if they can. And then our housing first model has been very important for us.
It's fantastic. I love the creativity and the compassion and that policy making. Yes, go ahead, George.
Could I ask one thing? I also would love to ask you, I don't want to take away from Oprah's spot here, but you just actually launched a UBI program that's changing the way fathers live in Colombia. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think people should know what you're doing.
This is not my show, man.
But listen, the light has to shine this way a little bit.
The sage advice that comes with this gray hair. I'm looking at Frank Scott looking clean there. He's talking about going to barbershops. I'm gonna shave these gray hairs off.
Give us a little bit. Listen, the good work you're doing needs to be told.
We're very proud to be a part of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. A lot of folks who either been supporters of UBI in the past, and some the more narrow focus on Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. None of us on this call, we don't need these resources, but there are a lot of people who are living, particularly in the two bottom quintiles of American economic society. If you give them a push and do just as these two mayors have been talking about, really connect the dots between the challenges that people are facing every single day in America. We launched an effort this week, Mayors for a Guaranteed Income in Colombia. We call it CLIMB, the Colombia Life Improvement Monetary Boost, giving $500 a month to 100 fathers. 100 fathers who are actively engaged in our Midlands Fatherhood Coalition, a fantastic program. It's got 20 years plus of a track record of helping build those ties that bind between men and their children. These men are either selected or directed to this program. And when this is going to give us an opportunity to show exactly what these types of unconditional payments to fathers might indeed help, because we all know, we know the importance of parenthood and good solid role models and people being active in your lives. And if you have a chance to build that tie, it just benefits society all around, particularly obviously our intense focus, I know the four of us, on our children. and helping them live up to their God-given potential. They can do amazing things. They need us to help get there. So, yeah, so we kicked off our program, issued the very first payments this week, and a year from now, we're going to be able to go back and look at some wonderful anonymized data, thanks to Mocify. And I got to give a shout out to my brother, Michael Tubbs, the former mayor of Stockton. The Stockton Seed Program served as the platform that helped us all receive significant help from Jack Dorsey and others to get these programs up and running. But thank you for recognizing that, George.
No, I say that because it's important. You know, from the Ignite Cities perspective, we were excited to help you with that. But also, I mean, the cities that we worked with around the country, I talked to Mayor Ramiro about LA with Garcetti, with the Angelino card, with Suarez, the Miami Forever card, the Klein card with you, right? And now with Mayor Cantrell, over the last, since the hurricane hit, we've been working with her from before, during, and continuing to supply relief. Her first cards will go out from a relief perspective to residents who have almost nothing at some capacity during this terrible time. And we're there at the front lines with them as well. So we're just always humbled to just be supportive in that process. So thank you, Mayor, for letting us do that.
You've been a blessing to our community, indeed. So I know we might have some more questions coming in. I was short on time. I want to be respectful, George. So you don't worry about pulling my coattail. Need to be. But we had some other questions from Mayor Carol Watson in Lincoln, Alabama, and also from Kaylin Kennedy. She's the chief of staff to the city council president in the city of Milwaukee. And you both touched on some of these, talking about transportation. You know, it's amazing how we don't realize that the jobs are over there and the people are over there, and if there aren't modern public transportation options to get people from A to B, that some people just can't get to jobs. It's just a reality. So Mayor Watson had a question if any of you are using any ARPA funds to provide transportation for unemployed individuals to different work sites. And Ms. Kenny asked if, particularly if anyone's been using ARPA funds to free up levy dollars that can be used at the city's discretion. I'm pretty sure there's a prohibition on ARPA funds being used for pension liabilities and ongoing pension liabilities. But are any of you seeing any type of levy dollars being relieved or tax relief or anything else around transportation? I want to make sure if we get questions in, at least have a chance to ask them on behalf of our wonderful NLC members. And everyone gets super polite, waiting for each other to say something. So I love it.
I'll just say it because I'm going to be very short.
Okay.
We here in the city of Tucson, through CARES and ARPA funds, we are providing free transit services to anyone in the city of Tucson. You don't need a card. You don't need proof of income. It is absolutely free. You walk into our streetcar and you don't have to pay. So whether it's residents or students or seniors or tourists, we are providing free transit services both in our bus system and in our streetcar system, completely free with ARPA funds till December of this year.
Awesome. Mayor Scott?
Yes, and so one of the things that, as I kind of alluded to earlier, one, we too are providing transit services from a vaccination standpoint to be very helpful through our Rock Region Metro, but also, again, is what we shared earlier, through utilizing the COVID-19 dollars. We set aside close to $1 million specifically to go to hard to reach communities that are have a high disproportionate impact and effect of COVID-19. And have been sharing these various incentives of $100 incentives that we've been sharing. So we had our first incentive where we gave $100 bank gift cards, I believe this past Saturday, actually. And so you wouldn't believe the number of people who showed up. I want to say we may have processed close to 500 vaccinations. And it even got to the point where I got yelled at because we made this big announcement about, hey, you get $100 if you've had one vaccine of Pfizer, and you can come, we'll give you the second, you get $100. And as for your first vaccine, you get $50. When you come back, you get the other $50. And so, according to the streets, if you already taken your vaccine, Mayor Scott said you get $100. According to, and so I literally was there and said, no, that's not what was said. I've called the news. I know exactly. You just heard what you wanted to hear. But thank you for taking. But thank you.
I was on my way to your city to get my $100.
Yeah. But the point of that is sometimes we have to. You would wonder, many of these individuals know people who've died from COVID, but it took $100 gift card for them to get.
Yeah.
But we're grateful that they did. We're grateful for the American Rescue Plan Act and the Biden administration and Congress that passed and really gave us this infusion of funds to do great work. And as Mayor Romero has already shared, many of the mayors that are in office, we're all focused on equity and accountability and justice. And so when you give an infusion of funds, it gives us the opportunity to truly invest, but invest in the areas that are needed most. And I think many times people don't understand the difference between equity and equality, where there's a great demand for equity as it relates to resources and to create the human infrastructure that we've been discussing today, but to create a better community infrastructure, which create better cities. And so we all understand what we've gone through, what we're still pursuing through right now with the pandemic. But we have an opportunity to be better than our beginnings, and American Rescue Plan has given us a great tools to be better than our beginnings.
I have to tell you, I know that both of you are serving long before you were mayors, and you have servant's spirit. But I am thankful that you're in the position you are in for such a time as this. We're thankful for your creative leadership, your passionate leadership, your compassionate leadership for the people of your community. So thank you for sharing your successes and your lessons and challenges with all of our colleagues from all across the country. You blessed us. George, as always, Ignite Cities, your commitment supporting all of our mayors and local leaders all across this country as proven this roundtable series. And Hayward said we had a dozen of them. I'm afraid I got to go back and look at them and see if my hair was cut and how much I weighed in each of those 12 sessions over the past year plus. It's going to be interesting.
Well, Mayor, let me just say, when we started this was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And when you and I talked about it, you jumped right in. And that was really to inspire elected officials to really come together in a place that they could talk about what was important to them and how we could apply it in a more human sort of sense or basis. And you've done that. You've really challenged all of us to talk openly about what's possible. So I'd like to say thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you, man. America's cities, towns, and villages, that's where it's at. And this roundtable series has given us a real opportunity to show the commitment to the men and women and children who make up our respective communities. So I want to thank the National League of Cities for the incredible leadership, Clarence and President Manus and Hayward, my man, for the commitment and the partnership for this roundtable series. And again, Cities Today, publishing our sessions globally. And I know that people tap into these and they steal the very best ideas. That's what we do, y'all. We listen to it somewhere and we take the very best ideas and try and make them apply to our respective communities. But Regina, Frank, keep leading. This country needs you. And I can only, I'm just excited to even see what the future holds for both of you. So thank you for today's conversation. 2021 is our time to reimagine and rebuild. We're going to have new mayors and new content next month. And we look forward to seeing each and every one of you then. Thank you, and may God bless and keep each and every one of you and your families.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.